Butter is a product you buy your whole life and never once read what's written on it. Why would you? It's just butter. There's nothing to read. But if you pick up two packages from the same shelf and flip them over, one has two ingredients, the other has five. Both are called roughly the same thing and cost roughly the same. Last month, I bought 8 different brands, read every ingredient list, looked into who actually stands behind each brand, and figured out why some recipes that worked without question for years suddenly start failing. It turns out there is a very specific reason, and it has nothing to do with your technique or your recipe. By the end of this video, you'll know what to look for at the store and which butter is actually worth your money. Before getting to the brands, one detail, without which everything else makes no sense. Butter looks simple. You churn cream, separate the fat from the liquid, package it. But in that process, there is one number that decides everything: the percentage of milk fat. Under a 1923 Act of Congress, any butter sold in the United States must contain a minimum of 80% milk fat. That is simply the threshold below which a product can no longer be called butter. The rest is water, roughly 16 to 18%, and milk solids. Now the important part, that water turns to steam in the oven. Steam develops gluten, and developed gluten in a pie is tough dough, not tender dough. Cookies spread out, frosting won't hold, pie crust crumbles. That is precisely why in Europe the minimum is not 80 but 82%. It sounds like a difference of only 2 points, but in the precise chemistry of baking, those 2 points are the difference between your grandmother's pie and the one that hasn't worked out 3 times running. It's math. There are 2 ways butter can change while the packaging stays exactly the same. The first is a change in the manufacturer, or the formula itself. Nobody announces this. The company simply quietly adjusts the composition, the supplier, or the production process. The packaging says the same words: sweet cream, salt. But what's inside behaves differently. The second happens at the level of the cow, before the factory even enters the picture. This is where what Canada called Buttergate in 2021 begins. During the lockdown, butter sales in Canada rose 12.4% in a single year. People started baking at home. Demand spiked. The number of cows did not increase. So farmers began widely adding palm oil, or more precisely its derivative palmitic acid, to feed, so that cows would produce more milk fat. This is a permitted practice that has existed for several decades, but when its scale increased sharply, bakers across Canada started noticing the same thing. Butter had stopped softening at room temperature. It stayed hard, crumbled, wouldn't spread. Researchers at the University of Guelph measured it. Palmitic acid levels in most Canadian butter had risen from 27 to 32 to 36%. Palmitic acid raises the melting point of fat. The butter had literally become a different product because the cow it came from had changed. The same question thousands of Canadians were asking themselves in 2021 was being asked by Costco shoppers in the United States in 2023. Let's walk down the shelf, from the ones where questions exist to the ones where the answer is clear. I can't believe it's not butter and country crock. Starting with the simplest case, these products are not butter by FDA definition at all. They are called buttery spreads or vegetable oil spreads. The ingredients: water, vegetable oils, emulsifiers, flavorings. If you're using them for baking, your recipe was written for milk fat, not a vegetable blend. The result will be different. The word country or butter in the name is not a guarantee of what's inside. That's marketing, not ingredients. Great value from Walmart. This is real butter. The ingredient list is clean. Cream, salt. But who exactly makes it is something Walmart doesn't disclose. The supplier changes depending on the region and the batch. For frying and everyday use, fine. For precise baking, a risk, because consistency is unpredictable. The same packaging, different butter inside. Land O'Lakes. a brand with history. Founded in 1921 as a Minnesota farmers cooperative, 350 farmers came together to reach the market under a shared name. That story still sits on every package. Today, Land O'Lakes is a diversified corporation with fertilizers, seeds, and international operations. They still make butter. Ingredients: cream, natural flavor. Fat content: exactly 80%, the legal minimum. For frying and everyday cooking, a reliable choice. But for delicate pie, dough, or buttercream, this is the floor. One detail worth knowing separately. Land O'Lakes is the only brand in this review where the ingredients include natural flavor. In butter, this is typically diacetyl or its derivatives, a compound that imitates the aroma of cream. Meaning a brand that sells itself as pure cream butter adds a flavoring to make the butter smell like butter. This is legal, this is safe, but it's a detail the packaging doesn't explain. Kirkland signature from Costco, the blue box. For years, a trusted choice for serious baking. And this is exactly where what we talked about at the beginning comes in. In November 2023, a single Reddit post triggered thousands of responses. My mom and I have been buying the blue box for years. Our pie crust recipe just fell apart. 2 batches and nothing. Others replied, cookies won't hold their shape. Buttercream refuses to whip. The crust crumbles. A TikTok baker wrote, I've been making Swiss meringue buttercream for years the exact same way. 2 months ago, it just stopped whipping. She switched out the Kirkland for a different brand, changed nothing else. The buttercream worked. CBS News contacted Costco asking whether the formula had changed. Costco did not respond. The packaging still says what it always has. Sweet cream? Salt? No exact fat percentage listed. But thousands of people felt the change with their hands, in their kitchens, in ruined pies. If you're a serious baker buying Kirkland, pay attention to how your recipes behave with the current batch. One more detail. The majority of complaints were about the salted Kirkland variety, not the unsalted. This is not a coincidence. Salt masks changes in flavor, and masks them well. That is exactly why degradation in salted butter goes unnoticed for longer. You think everything is fine because the taste is familiar, but the problem is already there. Salt is just hiding it. If you bake seriously, buy unsalted and add salt yourself. Then you're controlling both variables. This is where a question arises that applies to the entire shelf. If the minimum requirement stays at 80% and manufacturers are not required to publish the exact percentage, how do you know what you're holding? The answer: look for brands that publish that percentage voluntarily. Plugria. It looks like a French premium product. Even the name sounds French. It's actually made by dairy farmers of America in the United States, but here the marketing image is backed by a real number. 82% milk fat. That's the European standard. Developed specifically for bakers. Not available everywhere and costs more, but if your recipe depends on fat content, the difference is noticeable. Challenge butter. California since 1911. Ingredients: cream, salt. No natural flavor, no emulsifiers. Widely available at Walmart, Kroger, and Target. Among all the options with a clean ingredient list, the most budget-friendly. Tillamook, a farmers cooperative from Oregon, founded in 1909. Certified B Corporation, a legal commitment to standards, not just a marketing statement. Ingredients: cream and sea salt. Fat content: 81%, slightly above the American average. The flavor is rich with a light caramel note. It earns its place in both everyday cooking and serious baking, Kerrygold. And this is where we finish. Irish butter, produced by Ornua. 2 ingredients: cream and salt. Cows on pasture. This is the reason for the color. Beta-carotene from grass passes into the milk and gives that characteristic deep yellow. Fat content, 82%, the European standard. Its cult status among American bakers didn't appear by accident. Consumer reports, hundreds of blind taste tests, pastry schools all show the same result. If your baking requires quality fat, this is the most accessible option that justifies the price. If you need a practical cheat sheet, here it is. Everyday frying, scrambled eggs, sautéed vegetables. Fat content isn't critical here, and Land O'Lakes or Great Value will do the job. You won't feel the difference in a pan. Cookies, muffins, a standard chocolate cake. Butter isn't the star of the recipe. Challenge or Tillamook will give you a clean flavor without the extra cost. Buttercream, sponge cake, tart dough. Here, every percentage point of fat is felt. Tillamook at minimum, Kerrygold ideally. The cream will be more stable, the sponge more tender. Puff pastry, croissants, pie crust. Here fat is the structure. Plus Gras or Kerrygold. Nothing else. Excess water in the butter literally destroys the layers. The rule is simple. The more important butter is in the recipe, the higher the fat content you need, and the more sense it makes to flip the package before you get to the register, and immediately about price, because this question always comes up. Land O'Lakes or Great Value, roughly $4 to $5 a pound. Kerrygold, $6 to $8 depending on the store. The difference for one pie is less than $1. For one batch of cookies, cents. People spend more on vanilla extract, which gets used in microscopic amounts, and don't think twice. Butter is 80% of a recipe by volume. If you're going to economize on one ingredient, make it a different one. One thing you can do right in the store before opening any package. Look at the color. A rich, deep yellow is a good sign. Pale, nearly white. A different fat profile and a different flavor than the ingredients. Butter, 1 or 2 ingredients maximum. Cream or cream and salt. If you see natural flavor, emulsifiers, modified starch, vegetable oils, this is no longer butter in the traditional sense, even if the package says butter. And finally, if a brand doesn't publish the exact fat percentage on the packaging, that too is information. The last thing most people don't think about after choosing the right brand. High-quality butter with a higher fat content oxidizes faster than ordinary butter. Kerrygold or Tillamook in an open package on the counter will start losing their flavor within a week, the very flavor you paid more for. The refrigerator extends that to 2 months. The freezer? Up to a year, with no loss of quality. Butter freezes perfectly. It thaws in the refrigerator overnight and behaves exactly the same as fresh. The practical approach is simple. Buy 2 or 3 packages, keep 1 in the refrigerator, put the rest in the freezer. That way you always have a quality product on hand. Now, and you don't overpay in a rush at the store. My friend made the pie a 4th time with different butter. It worked because the difference is in the package. Here's what strikes me most about this topic. Butter is a product with 3 words on the label. Sweet cream, salt. It doesn't get simpler than that, and yet inside those 3 words there is enough room for the product to change without anyone noticing, and for someone who has been baking for 20 years to start doubting themselves. Now you know where to look. Color, ingredients, fat percentage on the package. 3 seconds in the store, and you're no longer guessing.